welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trucked Before. Yeah, we finally did it, guys. We finally did it. We watched Cop Rock. Some of us watched more than one episode of Cop Rock, but here we're going to discuss it. It's our final special episode. That means in 2 weeks we're back with season 3 of DS9. Yeah. Can you believe we're here? Maybe you can. I can barely believe that I'm alive here still. We're back in two weeks. January 9th to start season 3, DS9. We're going to keep rocking. We're going to keep rolling. But in the meantime, yeah, check out Cop Rock. It's out there. And then come back and listen to us talk about Cop Rock. You might want to watch more of the episodes too. I'll be honest, I still only watched 2. But doesn't mean I won't watch more later. Cop Rock, on of all places, it's all been trekked before. We've been talking about it forever. It's all been trekked before.
Welcome out to a very special episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We are going to talk Cop, the pilot. Very excited to have you all here for Cop Rock. Just the pilot. I intended to watch more, did not get to watch more yet. First impressions of the pilot.
Now, all right, so one of the first impressions had as much to do with the presentation, or rather the format. There's a watermark in the bottom of the screen that said Flop Trio.
Flop.
I didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
So,
We
I
watched
guess
it on YouTube because it's not officially streaming anywhere, and we weren't shelling out for the DVD. I'm sorry.
It was, I think Keith and I were watching the same one. It was Trio, which was, that might still be a cable network, but they had a show called Flops that they would show classic flops.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even worse than, more, I guess, insulting than what I'd imagined.
Well,
I
should do the research now. I didn't do that research, but I think Trio was one of those, like, quote unquote cultural channels. So they were, I think they might have actually been saying, like, hey, these guys tried hard, but it didn't work out. But I'm gonna follow up on that right now. But the
Trio network was originally owned and operated jointly with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. So Canada-based. It served as a venue for airing the CBC's arts, culture, and entertainment programming in the U.S. It was sold to USA Networks in 2000, which of course means it later got transferred to NBC Universal. Their slogan was Pop, Culture, TV.
Yes.
They were dropped from DirecTV in 2005, eliminating about 2/3 of the homes that received it. So it kind of disappeared.
They
after
were like
that.
This doesn't mean anything now, but they were like the Canadian Bravo, because back I don't know. Well, whenever Trio was airing this, that Bravo was still airing like symphonic orchestras, concerts. This is before I shouldn't say this. I think all Bravo shows is reality shows now, but I could be wrong on that too. I don't know the last time I watched Bravo, so.
It looks like the space occupied by Trio was eventually changed to Sleuth, which was NBC Universal's mystery thing, and that became Clue, CLOO, and then that shut down entirely and ceased to exist. They did have, according to Wikipedia, about 9 original shows, including The Inward, a Peabody Award-winning documentary starring Whoopi Goldberg, Samuel L. Jackson, and other African-American celebrities discussing the origin and power of the Inward.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Christmas special, which I'm curious about, Film Fanatic, hosted by Amy Sedaris, Saturday Spin Theater, featuring films like Leon the Pig. So some very eclectic stuff. And then they did air reruns of a lot of things, as well as they did have a subtitle, Brilliant But Canceled, which is not what Cop Rock aired under. And then they had 3 shows they aired under the Flops title. Cop Rock was one of only 3. The other 2 were My Mother the Car and Pink Lady and Jeff. So Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer was supposed to air. I've heard of that one, but pulled due to the controversial nature of the program, which was played for laughs a relationship between a black nobleman and Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. I know Clerks, the animated series, referenced Desmond Pfeiffer. I think it aired on Fox. And so they were going to air it and did not air it. So yeah, you should not feel, it was not honoring Flops, I don't think.
Yeah. Pink Lady and Jeff being in there is, I can tell you, I watched every episode of that show on its first run, and Jeff Altman was kind of a funny guy.
All 6 of them, huh? All 6 episodes?
Yeah. Is that all there were? Yeah, I saw them all.
I'm sorry, what was the premise?
Produced by Sid and Marty Krofft.
it was like kind of a variety show, and it was him
Oh.
and two beautiful, I think they were Japanese women, but I'm pretty
Say
sure
it's an American.
racist.
It's an American variety show starring the Japanese musical duo of the same name, and then their co-star Jeff Altman.
Yeah.
The show was riddled with complications, including a dispute over the name. Agents for the starring parties were never able to settle on one, and it was advertised multiple ways during its run. Both the Pink Lady starring Mia and Kai with Jeff Altman, and Pink Lady and Jeff were the two titles that it had.
That is something I haven't thought about in a long time.
Pink Lady was very popular in Japan. But yeah, the fact that the show was developed by Sid and Marty Krofft is like so weird and mind-blowing.
I'll tell you what, Pink Lady was popular with me too, because I enjoyed watching them. I can tell you that. But
you're familiar with Sid and Marty Krofft, though?
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. I forgot it was them.
He's not. And now that we're 4 levels deep in this Inception, I'm going to say this and end it. But what they're most famous for is HR Puffin stuff, Land of the Lost, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, like weird shows with rubber costumes.
Yeah.
That were family appropriate. As well as the Hanna-Barbera show Banana Splits.
Oh, yeah.
That makes
so
sense.
yeah, not a drug show.
Yeah. I think now we're 4 deep in the Inception. Let's start to pull it back out to Cop Rock. I haven't given my first impression. Have you both given your first impression?
I don't think we have.
I think I my power of tangents there. I introduced the concept of the flopping, and it just kind of went off from there. That was on my mind, certainly going, and that it sort of informed what was. And I'd heard of it. I remember it coming on, being on the air. I don't think I watched any of it, but it's just I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. When is there going to be a song of some sort? When is there going to be a musical? And it just, I think the strange thing about the series overall is having to try to combine those kinds of hard-boiled elements, and then also drop in those kind of musical numbers within sort of like the action of it, and having some of the rough attitudes, and then having them just, I mean, in some ways it's actually kind of interesting. I mean, it was skillfully handled in certain ways. I'm like, this actor is actually giving kind of like this kind of a convincing kind of, I mean, what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't say veritas necessarily, but it's like real looking people, essentially doing these things. And so that was interesting, or commendable, I would even say, for that much.
Yeah, when it came out, then I wanted to watch it because I think I mentioned this. Hill Street Blues is one of my favorite shows of all time. I watched every episode of that, and so I was like, I'm gonna check this out, but I never did see it, and then it was gone. But yeah, I think I think it is a glorious failure. I mean, it's taken a big swing. And we'll get into the notes, but there are times where I was like, is this intentionally bad? But I think the nature of musicals is tricky, regardless of how you do it. But they're trying to put it in a half an hour, not even an hour. Well, I guess that pilot was an hour, but I think the other episodes were half an hour. I could be wrong.
They were all an hour.
They were all an hour. Oh, okay.
Yes.
And also in my head, I'm like, I started thinking of not only things now in LA, but in the 90s in LA. And it starts out, the first number is almost leans into hip hop. And it's like, it seems like, I mean, now looking back, it's like, how could you not do hip hop? NWA is right there for you, but you can't put that on at 9. You certainly couldn't put it on at whatever, 9 o'clock or 9:30 on ABC back then, however you couched it. But that said, some of it kind of worked, and some of it gloriously did not. And some of it's really over the top, but so are musicals. I think it got caught in between, and it was not executed. I didn't get to where I think it doesn't seem like it's a show Bochco probably wanted to do, but he may have been aiming too high.
What do you, you mean, okay, I thought you meant like he was coerced into doing the show all, but you mean it was not.
No, I think, we all know how, compromises and all those things happen, but I think he probably had, he had other visions, and that was quite the needle he was trying to thread there. Like Schmigadoon, again, which show I love.
I need to watch season 2.
Great show.
Yeah, and of course it also got canceled after 2 seasons, even though it executed, I thought, really well. Like,
also,
brilliant.
This show only got 1 season.
What's that?
Not even a full. This show didn't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
2 seasons. This didn't
Yeah.
even get a one
Like,
full season.
yeah. 12 episodes or 11 episodes. Yeah.
11, a pilot
Yeah.
plus 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which brought it further than what was the other musical? So I think this was at the end of when they gave shows a chance.
Yeah.
Because there was another musical, I want to say it starred
Oh.
John Stamos. I'm trying to remember. That lasted like 2 or 3 episodes and they pulled it from the schedule. You know what I'm talking about? Like 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah. I thought I saw.
Are you talking about the medieval one, or are you talking about?
No. Gallivant was fantastic.
Yes. Right.
It got 2 full seasons and should have gotten more. John Stamos just got started 1 episode of that. That's not my first impression. I just it brought me to think of how they used to give shows a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like even this absolutely freaking god-awful show got 11 episodes.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, I know famously there was that show that got pulled after 2 episodes. I can't remember what that's called now either.
I mean,
there was a Heather Graham show sitcom that got pulled after 2 episodes.
Oh,
It was
wow.
really bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad. Emily's Reasons Why Not? Is that a thing?
sounds familiar, but I can't think of why.
Heather Graham is correct. I can't remember.
It was Heather Graham. It was 2006.
Yes.
And they only aired 2 episodes, I think.
I wanted to watch it, and the woman I was dating.
Sorry, they only aired 1. They only made 6, but they only aired 1, and they pulled
Yes.
after its pilot because it was so poorly received.
Wow.
So
my girlfriend at the time hated Heather Graham, so I never got to. I wasn't going to see it anyway.
Oh, I watched it. It was bad, but
Why was it? Why was it poorly received?
it was so bad.
But I
Like
mean,
none of the
what-
actors, none of the acting was good. The writing was not at all good. It was
it a
just
sitcom? It was a sitcom, right?
It was a sitcom. It was just such a mess of 22 minutes. And I know I've seen plenty of great shows with bad pilots, but it was a show that did not feel like it had any redeeming qualities, in my opinion, that could be built on to anything else. It was just so bad. I mean, I still can't believe they pulled it after 1 episode, but
That feels like it has to be should be a special episode then. You're talking it up so much right at this point. It's like, okay,
it's not at all related to Star Trek.
Yeah,
right.
True.
Yeah, we find a connection besides us talking about it.
I will, for Keith's edification, put it on the list, and then we can retroactively try to find a connection.
I was listening while we're on a tangent, but
yeah, we're never going to talk about this.
One last Heather Graham. I was listening to a podcast where they were drafting the movies from 1999, and Heather Graham's in the Spy Who Shagged Me. She's in Magnolia. Not Magnolia. She's in Boogie Nights. There's a third movie that wasn't that year, but then there's another movie. She put together a pretty good career. And I guess she shouldn't say she did. She's still with us. She's still acting. So I always liked Heather Graham, but I know people.
I think she's not a great actress, but you put her in the right part, it can really sell it. And there are a couple of roles I've seen her in where I've really enjoyed her. But overall, I would not hang a series on her, especially not a sitcom.
That's fair, I would say.
Yeah.
I have not been able to find the other. Viva Laughlin. That was it. Viva Laughlin was the other musical I was thinking of that only ran like 3 seasons. It did not star John Stamos. I don't know where I got that. It had Hugh Jackman in it, though. Madchen Amick, who I love. D.B. Woodside, Melanie Griffith, P.J. Bine. It was an American musical dramedy. They only aired 2 episodes. They made 7.
Madchen Amick, an episode of TNG. So there's your Star Trek connection.
So anyway, it was on CBS. Oh man, it was a mystery drama musical about a casino in Laughlin, Nevada, for some reason. Anyway, not important. What we're talking about is Cop Rock, and it sucked. It was so bad. I have heard about this show for years, maybe decades at this point. I certainly didn't hear about when it aired. I wasn't tuned into TV at that point, but I've heard about it my whole adult life as far as I can remember. And I always thought I would love it. I'm a sucker for musicals, big fan. I don't love cop shows, but like Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a great cop comedy. So I assumed that this was a half an hour comedy that was tongue in cheek. That's not what this is at all. My God, I would call it The Wire with a far inferior version of The Wire. I want to be very clear about that with songs.
I was like you, Jimmy. I came in thinking, oh, I'm going to be the contrarian. I bet people just didn't get it. It's like, nah, they got it.
So I did not buy the DVD, as I mentioned. We all illegally streamed it, pirated, because you can't stream it anywhere legally, not even for purchase. You have to buy the DVD or nothing. And I fully expected, I'm going to watch this first episode, love it. Go ahead and buy the DVD. It's only $23. Yeah. I watched this first episode, and because I have a weakness for musicals, and because Randy Newman only did the first episode and somebody else did the second, I'm curious enough that I want to watch a second episode. But I am not willing. I'm not willing after one episode to drop $23 on it. I think it's overpriced. I need to.
Is his theme song in every episode or just that episode?
I assume his theme song lasts.
Okay.
But the other, when I looked up who's composing the music, he just did all the songs. He composed all the songs for the pilot. Okay. Several of the songs did not sound like Randy Newman's songs. I give him a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah.
Tiny bit.
Well, he didn't have his voice in it, so.
Well, okay, Keith. But some of them did sound like Randy Newman songs. And I might say, unfortunately, like, there were like 5 songs in this episode, and 2 of them were good. So it wasn't just on the strength of the music that I hated it. Yeah. But I do want to see what the show does without Randy Newman in a non-pilot. So I do think I'll watch a second episode, but the first episode did not sell me on paying $23. I feel like it's overpriced.
I would say, I think you're bad. I think 2 songs is probably, I mean, the Randy Newman song I enjoyed. And then
I wasn't even talking about the theme song. It was fine.
Yeah.
We'll get to it, but that was not one of the 2 songs I was going to say I really like.
I'm curious to see. And I think even beyond that, and I'm curious to that's one reason why I might watch some of the other ones, is like, even the choreography and all that kind of stuff was just very pedestrian, you know.
Have you not seen the show, Steven?
Which one?
Opera.
Oh, I saw this one. Yeah.
You saw the pilot. You've never, but have you never seen it?
I've never seen it before. I've never seen it.
Okay, so I assumed, because you picked this as our special, I assumed that you being a little bit older than us, that you had watched it when it aired. And
I was around when it was on, and I wanted to, and I never, and then it was gone. I was like, I'll get to it, and then it was gone. Yep.
I guess I understood you hadn't watched it all, but I did not understand you hadn't watched any of it.
This is the first time.
Okay. Okay. That makes even more sense why this was chosen as a special.
Well, curiosity probably.
It has some Star Trek connection. I'll give you that. And I was two big connections in this pilot.
Yeah.
So let's get into breaking this down. We start with essentially a SWAT team attacking a house.
Yeah.
And which eventually, really late, in my opinion, for a musical. Like, you don't want, when you're doing a musical, you want an opening song. You don't want to go too much screen time without singing. This went really long before we got to the first number. But it was so bad. It felt racist to me. It was just like, I don't know if it was racist, but it felt racist.
No, there's something I wanted to say about this too, because it's just, a lot of it is going to be the sign of the times then. It's just, it feels, there's some heavy tropes. And I just want to get out I think it reminded me of like a Les Mis of copdom. You have heavy tropes for each of the central figures, and then also just the way that they were, I wouldn't say glorifying things necessarily, but it ages very poorly now from what we know of.
That's exactly what I like. My first note was war against drugs. Ugh. You know, all that. We're getting them off the street and all that stuff. And then I wrote very soon after that, I was like, this feels quaint. It feels very quaint. It is because, and I would say Hill Street Blues was not as much this way. It was, which, I mean, 10 years earlier, but I thought it was more of it was, obviously it wasn't a musical or anything, but I wrote down propaganda. I was like, I think it was played like the stuff that people are like, this is propaganda.
I've never heard that term. That's that
was a new one just in the last 4 years or whatever came out.
This was not propaganda because the cops did not come out looking good.
No, well, and
But
eventually we got there, but at first it's at the beginning, it's like, oh, we're doing the right thing. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's where I started to turn the episode. It's like, that's the bad guy and all that.
I didn't buy it from the beginning. I'm really glad by the end of the episode, I really hated the cops.
Mm-hmm.
That's a small
think,
redeeming quality.
I don't think that it's, again, I'm saying it's because of our modern mindset and what we know now.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you as a kid, the way this would have played is completely different. It still feels like his actions were justified by the end. Like, well, they know he's guilty. He did this thing. They got to get him somehow.
Yeah.
They're playing it out. It's always the IA who looks like a bad guy.
It was very dirty Harry. You know, almost to that level. And like going back to my NWA point, it's like now when you watch it, or I watch NWA videos, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this makes total sense. But back then I was like, what are these
come on, guys.
It's like, I enjoy the music, but come on. Yeah, exactly. I very much enjoy this music, but I don't know what they're talking about. And I literally didn't know what they were talking about. Talking about white guy from the country. I sure as hell didn't know what they were talking about.
Let's talk about the show was created by two white guys. Steve Bosco, whatever. As Steven mentioned, he was already well known at this point, Bacho or whatever, because of Hill Street Blues, which was 1980 to 1985, and that was a very well-received series. He'd already been in the industry for a good 10 years before Hill Street Blues, working on a variety of shows, including being an executive producer on Doogie Howser MD, although I guess that came overlapping with this.
You know, like Pink Lady and Jeff and Laughing.
No, I don't think those are on his.
I'm sorry, you said variety of. I just kind of it's
variety show. No, fair comparison. But he did recover from this because he went on to create L.A. Law and NYPD Blue and Murder One, which were all I think Murder One maybe not so much, but NYPD Blue and L.A. Law were very successful, and they came after this. And then his partner in this was William M. Finkelstein, who only has, this is his first credit as a writer and as a producer. So far fewer credits. He did work on LA Law as a writer for quite a while. And he did work on LA Law, the movie. He has a writing credit for that. Wow. But and Murder One as well. So I guess Steve kept him around. He was more recently an executive producer on The Good Fight with Christine Baranski from 2017 to 2022. So you didn't follow that one through the end.
I never watched NYPD Blue. Did you guys?
I don't think so. I mean, I watched, of all the things we've mentioned, I've watched the most LA Law. Around then,
where they showed Dennis Franz's butt, but I missed it.
I remember that being I remember in retrospect that being a big turning point for TV that you could show that on network television. But I certainly was, if I was watching any network television in that era, it was Full House and Boy Meets World. So, so we get to the theme song. I'm sorry.
No, I was wondering, were those even contemporary with each other? Boy Meets World on network?
They did have some overlap on TGIF Friday nights.
Huh.
Yeah, they did. So we get to the Randy Newman theme song, which was fine, but it was so bizarre. It felt like he was just playing on the set for fun, and the cast was wandering in and jamming with him. Like, not jamming with him, but dancing along. It was super bizarre, and and that's part of why I want to watch the second episode, is to see if they maintain that, because it was weird.
Yeah, so I went to LA. This will be the first of probably several LA stories since I just went there, like I guess a month ago. But and half the time I was there, every time we crossed the street that Randy Newman name checks and I Love LA, I was like, oh, this is the street.
We love
it. Yeah, exactly. And I actually do like LA. I enjoyed it very much. I've been there before. But anyway, I was the same way, Jimmy. I was like, is this just a new I Love LA? Even the cops and the criminals or whatever. But I still liked it. Yeah.
So we get to the post credits. These guys they arrest in the opening are in the courtroom. And the judge, and I was waiting for Steven's reaction to this, the judge actually calls the defendants scumbags as they leave the courtroom because they're bragging. He's like, shut up, scumbags. I'm like, can't you file for a mistrial right there?
Yeah, that's problematic. Yeah, very much so.
A judge can never say that against plaintiffs.
No, yeah, and that was another part where it's like, oh boy, what are we doing here? And I guess And that's where I was like, I wrote down, I'm like, is this supposed to be intentionally bad, just plain bad? Like how, even if you got all the music, it's still, does that make it worse?
All right, so I
Yes.
want to say that I'm the outlier as far as musicals go. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, in general, it feels like a tougher sell for me. I mean, I know there's certainly musicals I've enjoyed, and even
Any
special musical
composed by
episodes of
Christian Green?
certainly, and just certain TV series and other. I kind of fall into it like, okay, I'm all right. I'm on board now. Okay, this is great. Like a Shmigadoon, for example, that is obviously brilliant. I mean, there's because of, I mean, it's fun because of the fourth wall. Here's a very clear purpose of what's happening. These oddities are being acknowledged in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think when you don't have that layer to deal with the oddities of things, it gets a little, all right, well, here's this contrivance of how things have to flow. But well, I would say that one of the elements I've noticed though, and certain things play differently because, or rather, no pun intended, whatever. The characters seem to have to be more stereotypical, for lack of a better word. Or this is a very bright and dramatic situation. We want tropes, paradigms, whatever. Just
Right.
something the audience can easily latch on to and just kind of run with. Okay, we shorthand, so we don't have to do as much of those kinds of expository things. I think that's part of it.
I get that argument, and I do fully admit that musicals tend to have stereotypes and play on those familiar tropes because it is shorthand. I absolutely agree with that. Gallivant, which I loved, did that a lot, but then like twisted the tropes, right? Because it was good. I'm a sucker for musicals, and most TV musicals, like TV shows that do a musical episode, I think succeed.
Of course,
If they lean into their own style. I get really excited about that. I mean, I love Grey's Anatomy. No memorable songs, but lean into the style. Because it was reusing the music that worked for Grey's Anatomy. Love Star Trek Changing Worlds, especially in retrospect. The more I think about it, the more I like it. But no catchy tunes because it leans into the style of Star Trek.
Not going to mention
Scrubs
Buffy.
the musical. Buffy's amazing. Buffy's A-list.
Right. That's
Scrubs
really sold
is
me
A-list too. Right? Like Scrubs is really darn good of the music. The
one.
Scrubs musical. Oh, it's so you go watch it right now. I mean,
okay,
not right now. After this, they got the people that did Avenue Q to help them with it. It's phenomenal.
I want to see that one. I never saw that. I've heard a couple songs off of from Avenue Q.
Oh, Avenue Q is wonderful. I actually saw it on stage. But anyway, what I'm saying is,
to your point, I think this is the point you're making. I think if you've established this is our show, and then if you're like, for this one time we're gonna throw music in, it's I don't want to say easier. It's still a higher net, but I think it's like you're saying, changing worlds. Like, okay, I know these characters, and they're doing it in that style, so they can get away with all the other stuff. Because I know people that are like, oh, I hate musicals because they sing the subtext and they, people start dancing. It's like, okay, yeah,
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, and that doesn't, and that happens in this episode. I actually liked it, but anyway, we'll get into that a little later. But
I was gonna say, I argue that this particular show, just based on the first episode, as we've said, does not follow the tropes of musicals. And maybe that's what they were trying to do to make it different, that it's not all the fact that, I mean, yes, it heightened certain scenes, but the music feels so disjointed from the show itself. And I think that's part of my problem.
I think it's just the subject matter. That's the problem.
To do a dark comedy and then to add musical numbers that did not fit, or not dark comedy, dark drama. Right. But to add musical numbers that didn't fit into the dark drama was so jarring and disjointed that it really did not work on any level.
No,
Even though there were two songs I like isolated, I don't think they were good in the cohesion of the episode, right? None of the songs worked in the cohesion of the episode.
Correct. I guess I hadn't really thought of it as being a problem that they could have solved by just going with a different kind of, something more cohesive to the theme, as opposed
Absolutely. Anything can be a musical if you stick to what the show is. I think what didn't work for this is the musical parts were not meshed with the rest of it. Plus a lot of bad acting. Like a lot of bad, the actors overall were not great.
And by people that are good actors, a lot of them, but not in this.
Some of them. So
I was gonna. All right, that's
Barbara
all right.
Boston, the mayor. Also was married to Stephen Bochco for a long time. She was Emmy nominated, I think, several times on Hill Street Blues. She was great on there. I didn't like her as the mayor. Yeah,
she's so off. She's one of the standout worst people in this episode.
I didn't think she was good either. I was like, what happened to Barbara Boston? This is not the Barbara Boston I remember.
Who was she playing in this?
She was the mayor.
The mayor.
And
the mayor was god
okay,
awful.
right. All right.
There is the thing of you can also make it that these people don't naturally sing, and this is my La La Land argument, which people are like, well, Ryan Gosling's not a great singer. I'm like, he's not supposed to be.
Yes, he is.
He's supposed to be.
Take that back. Between La La Land and Barbie,
yeah,
I think he's proven his musical chops.
He is, but he's not supposed to be in. I mean, he's just a
the character.
Player. Yeah, the character isn't. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling, I'm there for him for sure.
If anything, I've become more of a fan of Ryan Gosling in the last few years.
Good.
Same.
Me too. And I know I don't mind if they're supposed to be regular people bursting into song, depending on, and again, it kind of gets the way you were kind of you're saying, Jimmy, or like tonally or whatever, because kind of Schmigadoon was like, how are we singing this good? The two of them, but everybody else obviously could sing great, Mm-hmm. But in La La Land, I like that a lot of the scenes and the singing fit into the tone of the movie and the spirit of it. And so, because I haven't seen Les Mis, and I'm not a Les Mis fan. I'm not going to see Les Mis, but maybe
I know if you're listening on audio, you can't see my face, but I'm disgusted with you right now because
people hate awesome. Russell Crowe in that. I know that, and I'm like, well, maybe.
Oh, you're just talking about the movie, okay?
Yeah, the movie. Yeah,
the musical's brilliant. The movie's not bad.
The musical either, but that's a different podcast. I saw a 4-hour version of it. Technically brilliant. I just didn't love it. The music.
I love Les Mis. Okay.
It's a little dark for my taste, in the wrong ways, but that's a different discussion.
I will say there is a cop show trope early on that's not a musical trope. I think he actually says, "Don't die on me."
Yeah.
I think when the cop gets shot, and I was like,
that was such an overacting moment.
We're just going to do this scene. Yeah, because in Tropic Thunder, they're terrible in that scene too. I was like,
but that's played for comedy. This is never played for comedy.
That's what I'm saying. I know, but I can't tell the difference between the two scenes the way they're performed. So,
right,
if this show would lean into cheesy tongue-in-cheek comedy, it might have worked, but it never does. None of the actors ever back that up.
Yeah.
All right, a couple things I wanted to say then. Back to something I said toward the beginning. I think some of it, as far as the acting, they're more like real people than polished actors that you would see. I don't know if I'm saying this right. It felt like they were speaking the way you might expect real people to speak. Unfortunately, they aren't going to sound as how do I even put this? I think we get spoiled by the way we're used to seeing things dramatized. You're used to people speaking clearly in certain ways, or there's certain kinds of tones and evenness that people in real life don't necessarily hit. But that's neither here nor there. The other thing, again, I think one of the problems I end up having with the musicals is it leans very much into the hammy stage acting side of things, and I think we're kind of seeing that translated here as well, and it doesn't mesh well with what it should be.
It works if that's your tone, but your tone in this is not hammy.
But that's my point. Yeah, they kind of mesh. It's hard to do both of those kinds of things in there, or rather, it's hard to break into song and get a dance number going without it having some sort of, this is a big dramatic hammy thing that we're doing, and it's jarring, as you were saying, just with the subject matter.
I think we're all agreeing that it was a lot of different disparate elements that were not well meshed together. So that's part of the problem there, unfortunately. Let's talk. So early in this episode, not long after the theme song, I wrote the misogyny is so strong in this episode.
Ooh,
yeah.
I'm not going to get into actor by actor, but there is a young female cop like I said, I don't remember their names. I'm not going to go through this. I'll pull out one or two actors. We're not doing the regular Star Trek thing where we're talking about every actor. There was a young female cop and her male partner that hit on her mercilessly, was so misogynistic, but that wasn't the only thing. Like, there were multiple things. Then we get to the interrogation, and we need to talk about Detective Vincent LaRussa, and I am going to call that actor out, played by Peter Aronati, who I actually enjoy in other things. He's best known for, according to IMDb, 12 episodes of This Is Us. I would disagree with that. Goodfellas, El Cortez, and Cop Rock.
So you don't think he was in This Is Us?
No, I don't think that's one of the highlights of his career. Nothing was bad in This Is Us. But I recognize him for so many other things that I think are more prominent. I mean, he did Station 19 a few episodes a while ago. A lot of guest spots, but I feel like he's a super familiar face.
One of his credits at this time was a show called Civil Wars, another show I never saw, but was supposed to be really good, and he was supposed to be great in it, but never really gathered an audience. But
I think he's really good in certain roles. And I will say, I'll defend it if you say he's a bad actor here, because he really committed, and I thought he really sold what he was doing. I hated LaRusso. He was a crap human being that deserves whatever legal punishments we can give him. And definitely portrayed as the hero, but in my opinion, the villain of the piece. But the illegal interrogation he was doing, and I will say, to Keith's point about for the time, I did flash a little bit to Jack Bauer in 24.
There we go.
And how he would do similar interrogations. But in those cases, he was interrogating terrorists with a ticking clock where a bomb was going to kill a bunch of people coming up. And in this case, without that, it felt worse to me. And maybe that's bias. Maybe that's bias that I can accept it in certain situations, but not this one. But man, that interrogation, that illegal interrogation, as I'm sure it was so bad.
Well, no, I think you laid out some pretty rational point. I mean, I think there are justified reasons for seeing the difference between these situations.
Yeah,
you're trying to save lives versus getting your revenge, essentially, or I'm mad because of this thing, and we gotta,
And my brain is, like we said, we've got hindsight, but it's like, the Rodney King happens 2 years after this. I watched the whole OJ movie, which gets into all of the years and years of terrible things done by LA cops, that was not on TV kind of stuff, including, actually, this will be maybe my only other LA brag. When I was walking around LA when I was there was this building, and I'm like, I think that's the building from the opening of Dragnet. And sure enough, it's City Hall, and it's the opening of Dragnet. Now that's propaganda. But, and that's actually featured in the OJ movie, Dragnet, and What Happened 12 is examples of, cops are cool, and all these people are scum kind of a thing, but with a 50s, 60s polish on it, which is, I don't know. But to me, and maybe I'm forgetting a lot of Hill Street Blues, but I thought Hill Street Blues was just a very serious, although it could be a funny show, but nobody sang on it. But I'm also sure they had some histrionics, for lack of a better term, over dramatized parts. But it was one of the best shows on television for some years. So, but I will say, I know we're not going fully on, but the woman who played the young cop, Ann Bobby, I recognized her, and I was like, she's in Beautiful Girls, a great movie from the 90s and 96, and also in Happiness, the Todd Haynes.
Oh,
yeah.
So Ann Bobby was the actress, because that's not okay.
Yeah, she's the one that's married to the older guy.
Yeah.
Yes, Ron McLarty
wants to date her. Yeah.
Ron McLarty is the actor's name, who played Detective Lieutenant Ralph Ruskin, who is best known for The Postman, St. Vincent, Person of Interest, just one episode, Person of Interest, and this episode, or this show.
He did a lot of. He was a novelist too, but he had a lot of credits, and then he did
60.
He did a lot of commercials, I should say.
Only 60.
Yay.
I do want to point out he was in a 2005 TV movie called Trump Unauthorized, where he played Fred Trump.
Oh wow!
Just want to throw that out here real quick. I mean, he did a. Oh, it doesn't look like. Oh no, he did. He died in 2020.
Yeah.
So his song. Well, first he has the bathroom scene about how he's having trouble peeing, And I felt bad for him, but certainly like you're not meant to like him. Like, oh, that's that
Right.
schlubby old guy who we don't like. And then we turn around with this beautiful love song. And look, I don't buy the relationship, but and maybe I need to watch more episodes to buy the relationship. It was not sold on to me in the pilot, but that was one of the two songs I really liked. It felt very
Interesting.
old musical. I thought he performed it really well. As soon as he started singing, I was like, this guy has this voice. And all of a sudden, my heart is breaking for that character. And the emotion in the song was real. Like, why does she love me? I don't know, but I love her. And I'm going to hold on to this as long as I can. And it was so damn good.
Unfortunately, I related to that very much. but beyond that part of it, it was weird the way it was kind of a slow zoom in and a slow zoom out, but it was him just to the camera. And it made me think of another song, but I never thought of it where I haven't come up with it. I haven't looked for it either, but the whole "She Chose Me" part of it. So yeah, I'm with you, Jimmy. I thought that was the one that I wrote. He had good divorced dad energy.
I would agree with that. I mean, I don't know that he was a dad, but I would agree that he had that energy.
Right.
We never saw a child.
Yeah. Well, and also, I'll say that while we're here, I thought the one scene in the whole show that rang the most true for me, I'll say one other thing after this, the one was when the internal affairs guy shows up, and our guy McClarty is the CSI guy, and they talk to each other and they take their time, and they're saying it, but they're not saying it, but they are saying it. They're like,
yeah,
I know what you're doing, and I know what you're doing, and I know I know what you know that you know what I'm doing. And I just thought that was the one part that was underplayed the whole episode, and I liked that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, here's a couple guys doing some good acting here for a couple minutes and slowing things down. So I really like that scene. But just to go back to that song one more time, and I kind of hit on this earlier. Like I said, somebody I know was like, I hate musicals. People, they sing their subtext. It's like, but that's the whole idea of getting to know the character, and they're feeling something. That's why they're saying this. And it also made me think of another thing I bring up on our show all the time was the red kryptonite, the space madness idea of, and that you shouldn't have a song where people aren't expressing either how I'm feeling or this is my deep thoughts or this or that. Otherwise, they don't all have to, but I think it's a good idea if they do in some way. And I'll go back to La La Land for a second, because one of my favorite songs it'll tie all my things I like about music together, is Lovely Night, which I perform part of. But anyway, because I think it's just a couple that's getting to know each other, and they're, the singing's not super difficult because I can sing it, but also at least that great dance sequence, which is essentially like the dance, and that's one of the first times I remember being like, oh, I can actually interpret this dance. This is their relationship. And of course, on repeated viewings, it was like even more like, okay, yep. And that's one of the moments in the movie where I'm like, and obviously Emma Stone and Gosling have chemistry, but it was also bumps it up. You hear a little bit more of what they're thinking.
Emma Stone and everybody have chemistry. Let's just be clear on that.
Yes, yeah, and Ryan Gosling and a lot of people too. But I'll just say
fair.
That one's interesting in that they're saying the opposite of what they're actually saying and feeling, and then the dance and everything else conveys that. And that, I think, that's one reason it's one of my favorite musicals. But anyway,
La La Land's wonderful. I'm not knocking it.
Well, good. Some people do, but anyway, but I think that it makes sense for people. If it's going to be a musical, people are going to sing. You just, if you don't like music, I guess okay. And I'm not even saying that as a person who loves every musical, but I don't hate anything just because it's a musical.
It just felt to me at this point in the episode, as far as we've talked through, that LaRusso, Peter Onatari, and Ruskin, Ron McLarty, were carrying the show, both being good actors, surrounded by actors that were not up to their level. And from there, we go into a Ernie Hudson, Ronnie Cox scene, which was by far, Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I didn't recognize him in the.
So we get the scene of the two of them in Ronnie Cox's office. Ronnie Cox being our Admiral Jellicoe from Chain of Command, Star Trek, one of our two Star Trek connections. That scene, as it was playing out, I'm like, oh, this was what the show would be like if it had good actors, because the two of them are so good.
Yeah.
It elevates, and that's the other thing that feels so disjointed about this, is most of the episode is poorly acted, or we've got one actor surrounded by poor actors, and then you get an Ernie Hudson, Ronnie Cox scene, and you're like, oh, that actually works. So why isn't this not the show?
Ronnie Cox was one of the people in the cast. They were like, you don't have to sing for us. You're getting cast either way. We don't care. But it's not the other people had to audition. Yeah. But they were like, Ronnie Cox, you're in. Yeah.
That reminds me of something I was going to say before, because I wasn't sure. So each song is actually being sung by the actor and not like just lips. Yes. I mean, they're lip syncing for the performance probably, but
right. No, it's not like ringers coming in to sing for them now. But the problem with that Ernie Cox, the problem with that Ernie Hudson, Ronnie Cox scene is it leads into the Mayor song with the weirdly green lit suitcase. Like the money is lit so weird in that. And it is probably the very worst song in the episode. Mainly because that Mayor is so bad in her scenes. Mayor Louise Plank, played by Barbara Bosson, best known for Hill Street Blues, Last Starfighter, Murder One, and this. I don't know if she's good in other things, but she's really, really miscast as the Mayor. Yeah. And the singing and dancing that she does sucks.
She was awesome on Hill Street Blues. She was like, would steal every episode, every scene she was in. But yeah, so I was also like, oh, this is not working for me at all.
No.
And that was probably, I thought that whole dance number was probably the clunkiest of the episode. It
was probably also the most like tongue-in-cheek, we're doing a cheesy musical here.
Yeah.
The most like breaking that realism element of the show. It looks like she did all 11 episodes for some reason, despite her terrible performance here.
I thought her accent was weird, and then she's like, well, I'm from Delaware. And I'm like, well, I don't know what a Delaware accent is.
It's that.
I also thought she had some strange prosthetics like around her nose and stuff, but I'm not sure I'm right about that. It might just be the way she looks. It looked like bad aging makeup on her face.
To me, I was like, oh, she looks a lot different, but I just remember back to Hill Street Blues. So that was 10 years ago.
I mean, I'm looking at a picture of her on IMDb, like her main image, and it looks significantly different to me. Similar to where I see, it looks like she plays a judge on some show, on Murder One. Again, looks significantly different to me. So I think they did something makeup-wise, and I swear there's some prosthetics in there that just did not work for her.
Her hair is insane. Speaking while we're on, it's just, well, I don't know what that is. I know.
Now we get another courtroom scene, and Armin Shimmerman's the prosecutor. Yes. Armin Shimmerman being Quark from DS9, distinctive voice, other Star Trek connection. He, of course, is great. He doesn't sing, has a very small part, but
also Principal Sherman from Buffy. So there's another link there.
Absolutely. I mean, he wasn't in the Buffy musical, of course, but he definitely connects DS9 and Buffy. Did you say unfortunately?
Yes, unfortunately, he wasn't in the musical.
I'll give you that. I would love to see Armin Shimmerman sing. I'm pretty sure he sings at Star Trek conventions. He's part of that group of actors that played aliens that go around the Star Trek conventions and sing like lounge singer type songs. He and like Rom and Martok and stuff.
I had no idea there was such a thing.
I'm not making this up. Like, this is a thing they do at conventions and cruises, and I'm pretty sure he's part of it.
So I gotta know the name of that. I'll look it up.
It's wonderful. This is the only episode Cop Rocky's in.
Wow.
Fortunately for him that he escaped that bullet, but he's really good in there. The keyboard popping up from under the desk in the song that happens in the scene he's in with the "He's Guilty."
Missed it.
The "He's Guilty" is the other song I liked because it was super catchy, but it was cheesy as hell and it did not fit. I mean, even the fact that the defendant's own defense attorneys were singing "He's Guilty" halfway through. I really bumped on that. Like, dudes, I mean, I get if the jury and the judge in this case, even though the judge calling scumbags earlier I disagreed with, but in this case, like jury, judge, defense, sure. The prosecutors are going to sing "He's Guilty." What the hell?
You mean the defenders?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. The prosecutors great. Defenders, not so much. But that song was so damn catchy. You notice LaRusso in that courtroom scene had his arm in a sling, which is definitely a fake injury because he's not injured before or after, which made me hate him even more.
Ooh, I wondered. I should have wondered about that.
When he testified, he had his arm in a sling.
Yeah, I remember that, but I just thought, whoa, I don't remember I wasn't paying close enough attention to go, oh, this is that character from this scene that is doing this and the other, it was just a cop who got injured.
He didn't wear the. He was in the episode before and after that scene and never wore the sling in those scenes, which is definitely like fake neck brace. This is why we're going to talk about LaRusso as we get to the rankings here. Then, of course, LaRusso fakes the death, saying with him unfortunately backed up by Ruskin, who I really liked in the love song. And then he's like, yep, those cuff marks are at least 3 days old. Yeah. And I'm like, Ruskin, you're not. I mean, I get his position and place in life and job duty, why he does that. And in 1994, maybe the cops weren't so crooked. I like to believe. I'm probably wrong on that. In 1990. But clearly, with modern sensibilities, Ruskin backing up LaRusso, I was like, okay, you're both scum. This is like a few bad apples ruin the bunch. Finish the saying. Don't just say a few bad apples and like the rest of the department's good. No, a few bad apples ruin the bunch, and Ruskin is the bunch that's ruined, in my opinion.
I will say, that it's a trope, but once internal affairs got involved and they're like, nope, you're going down. Well, come and get me, or whatever they say. It's a trope, but at least you're like, okay, I think he's the good guy.
I think that's the captain. I want to say that's probably Captain John Hollander, played by Larry Joshua.
So. Yeah.
Who is the one who's like, I see what you did and I don't approve of it. Best known for playing the wrestling promoter in the 2002 movie Spider-Man, as well as Dances with the Wolves, The X-Files, and The Burning. Yeah, the captain. I'm just calling him the captain because I'm not 100% sure that John Hollander is the right captain, but I liked him. That was to me like, oh, okay, my one hook if I want to keep watching this show is I want to root for the captain to bring down LaRusso. That is my driving motivation for watching the show. Because I'm certainly not watching the show to root for LaRusso.
During that time period, for quite a while, it always seemed like they play IA, and the person trying to stop them is being the buzzkill, essentially. You're such a stick in the mud. Why are you making things so tough for us? Then maybe you get some other movies where there are people who really do need to be stopped, and sometimes they do have to resort to, well, okay, maybe I will go to IA and finally, be redeemed. But wait, there's one other thing. It was the thing that started to worry me, thinking about like real life again, and were they really that bad? Blah blah blah. I mean, we know, of course, that they've always been at least that bad, and probably worse. And I started to wonder if they promote those kinds of movies, those kinds of characters to make the audience think that sometimes it actually works. Like, oh, don't worry about it. There's somebody watching. We've got the good guys in IA who really are going to try to do something, and if they and that's sorry.
Yeah, the captain character was the redeeming element, where I'm like, at least the writers and producers of the show know that LaRusso is bad and know that he deserves to go down. Because up until the captain confronting him after the fake death, I was like, this show is glorifying and promoting bad cop as hero. And that scene with the captain saying, basically, I know you've done wrong, you're going to go down for it, is to me where the show took a slight turn, not enough to redeem everything that came before it, but was like, okay, there's some self-awareness here.
Okay, I see your point there. I don't know if it's gonna be enough.
The conflict, but
it's a little too late, but it was there.
To your point, Keith, it makes me think of spoiler, Serpico, 50-year-old movie, but
I haven't seen it. Don't spoil it.
That movie's about Pacino's great in it. You should see it anyway. It's based on a true story. A cop who's fighting the system. There's a Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where Charlie is playing Serpico, and he's undercover. And he gets in too deep. He becomes Serpico. But anyway, the end of that movie is kind of like, well, I did the right thing, and these corrupt people went away. But guess what? That just means some other corrupt people are. You didn't take care of the problem. You took care of this little problem, but it's still there.
Oof.
Which is a very 70s thing, 3 Days of the Condor, on and on and on, the paranoia and stuff. And I'm sure there's movies like that around now. But yeah, one other thing, and this is probably my last note, thing of the time is they dropped the R word.
Oh,
One of them called
Yeah,
somebody else the R word.
that's
Yeah.
rough.
flew
So-
past me on that one, oddly enough.
Yeah.
I actually missed where it was, but it
I
makes
remember
sense
it
where
happening now
was.
that you say it. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, my last notes are about that final scene where the one actress, the druggy mother, played by Catherine Wilhoit. Wilhoit? Let's see. She played Patricia Spence. Kathleen Wilhoit was the druggie they arrested and then let go, and then her baby was the whole thing. She's best known for Roadhouse, Color of Night, The Edge, Fire in the Sky. I know her from Gilmore Girls and a couple other things that didn't pop up as her best known for. Still active actress. Her selling her baby for $200.
Wow. I was like,
And for a second, I thought I found a deleted scene or song from this episode about the baby seller, the baby merchant, but I guess that's from episode 4. So the guy that sold her baby is a reoccurring character that I assume the whole first season they're trying to bring him down, I hope. But
yeah, that's a good question.
But the thing about that song I want to point out, and I know you didn't watch that song because it wasn't part of this episode, but he said she's like $200, right? And gives her $200. In episode 4, he tells the couple it's $11,000. So his profit margin is huge. This baby merchant, he is super freaking evil. But
Looks bad, okay.
But he also says the other thing that hit me on that scene was he said, "Look, this couple's so loving. They bought me a car seat for the baby, but then instead of putting the baby in the car seat, he hands her to a woman in the front seat that never speaks." I'm like, "Is that the mom who bought her, or is that just the mom of the baby who was like, you need to hand it to me instead of putting it in the car seat because the baby's going to cry and mess up your take otherwise?"
That's great.
Yeah. Either way, it was a heartbreaking scene, and fourth actor that's fifth actor in this that's good. I say most of the acting's bad, and most of it is. But Peter Arnott as LaRusso is great. Ron McLarty as Ruskin is great. And then, of course, Ronnie Cox and Ernie Hudson, who's just guest starring. He's not in for their episodes. They're great. But Kathleen Wilhoit is wonderful. Yeah. I mean, her character sucks, selling her baby for $200, but the acting, I think that's what makes the bad acting stand out so much, is you had a couple meaning like 5 really great actors and then 20 terrible actors surrounding them, that it stands out all the more.
I just want to point out that that's what made me think of one of the things that made me think of Les Mis, or that's what really brought it home. And that is one of the reasons why I can't really separate that from, or rather the musical, why I don't really enjoy it as much, because it feels like a nonstop ride of that, of people just having to do the worst possible things for all these just reasons that we are now experiencing ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's just headed right to that. And anyway.
Did you have any other notes for this before we get to ranking?
I have no more notes.
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay. Did you guys pick a shady character this week?
Well, now it's the baby merchant.
Yeah.
Oh, I went with the LaRusso, but baby merchant makes sense.
Yeah. The baby merchant. The Russos. I don't know if he's annoying. I guess. He's more than annoying.
LaRusso's by annoying. So if you want to have separate winners for each category, the baby merchant's a solid choice for shady, so that you can give LaRusso annoying.
I'm with that.
Yeah. Who was the partner that was pressuring the female partner essentially?
Oh, I don't know his name, and I don't care. I'm not gonna find it.
Well, that's
Andy Campo.
That's my annoying. That's my annoying. He was just
fair. I was not even willing to figure it out.
Well, and I couldn't tell. Was the idea that she was considering it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Eventually.
Yeah, the fact that she said, "I'll be thinking about you too," right before she goes in for the
love
song broke my heart. Because I was like, yes, I get he doesn't deserve her, but if she's with him, then he does deserve her, right? Yeah. Like, he doesn't deserve to be cheated on and treated like that.
Right.
That actually hurt my opinion of her, is that she entertained the idea with the young cop and then went home to him.
Those are the tropes.
I know. Shady, or not shady, sorry. Who are you having a drink with? I'm choosing the captain that's coming after LaRusso.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
The only good cop character in this.
I
I mean,
suppose
maybe the female cop was a good cop character too, but if she's considering cheating on her awesome husband or lover or whatever, then no, because he was great, whether you think he's physically attractive or not.
I know
he's a
how
great
that
guy. You want to give him a hug.
Yeah, I'm going with the guy from Internal Affairs.
Yes.
The,
well, he was Internal Affairs. He was the captain because Internal Affairs was just like, whatever, you're fine.
Yeah.
It was that one captain who's like, screw Internal Affairs. I'm still investigating you.
The-
IA backed up LaRusso's story. Because IA is not, and I will argue this is probably true in real life, IA sucks at actually investigating internal affairs. They're going to back up the cops 90% of the time, probably more than 90.
That was the point I was making earlier about the reason why they're in popular media like that, to maybe give us a false sense of security. The thing, I guess the funny choice would be Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, I love Ernie Hudson. No, he was great in this.
The joke being him being tortured with coffee, being forced to drink.
Oh,
so having a drink with her, that whole thing.
That's
anyway,
great.
But actually,
what was the deal? I'm going back. What was the deal with Ronnie Cox?
What's the deal?
What was the deal with Ronnie Cox shooting that robot?
That was such a weird bit.
Oh, right. See,
it was so weird.
It was almost like a literal here's a cowboy cop, essentially. You know, he's so trigger happy, and then look how good I am.
I like that he got it out on the robot and wasn't out there shooting drug dealers.
Right.
So, yeah, I didn't necessarily root for Ronnie Cox's character, partly because of the robot, but yeah, it was a bizarre moment. I'll give it that. The last note I have, I guess, is the alternate episode. Did either of you get the chance to watch the 4-minute Funny or Die sketch, The Wire, the musical?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So I love The Wire. And like I said at the beginning, this is a crappy version of The Wire. But because this was a musical, it made me remember that there was The Wire, the musical, which was a Funny or Die sketch involving several of the main characters from The Wire. Yeah. Not McNulty, they recast him. But they had like Omar and Bubbles and a couple other actors reprise their roles from The Wire. And they have a burner phone sing as the burner phone. The burner phone has a song. Really bad McNulty. And I love the line in there about, we've condensed 5 seasons of the densest show on television to a 90-minute musical. And that really made me wonder how you squeeze The Wire into 90 minutes. But I've only watched 2 seasons of The Wire. I'm loving it. I'm going to watch the 2 seasons I've watched over the last 2 or 3 years. I will watch the other 3. But it's such a great show. And that musical sucks and is in a way that they know they suck, and they embrace it, and they make it cheesy on purpose. And that's what I wanted Cop Rock to be. So that's why it's my alternate episode, was either do a serious cop show and music that fits with that, or do a cheesy tongue-in-cheek parody of a cop show and commit to that. Don't make it like an 80-20 split that does not work or gel together.
Yeah.
80% being the dark drama and 20% being the goofy musical.
I think that's the show I envisioned it being more of back then.
Yes.
But obviously it was not. Also, Charles Haight, who appeared on Hill Street Blues, is one of the producers. So.
Just one quick comment about the Wire musical you were describing.
Yeah.
I honestly, at first, I thought you meant that the burner phone was like anthropomorphic, like they put a mouth on it or something. And
they had a guy in a costume as a phone.
Oh, okay. So I was too far off. That's great.
They did not shell out for animation, but they had a guy in a cell phone costume.
But then I thought you meant that they had somebody on the other end of the line singing a song, which would have been pretty clever, actually.
No.
Yeah.
It was just the phone singing.
That's still funny.
Phone. And I will say there's a really great line, and I haven't finished The Wire, so I don't know how appropriate it is. There's a really great line in the Wire, the musical sketch, where Omar's like, I get it now. Like, the cops, the drug dealers, we're all walking the wire of life. And I was like, my God. That's not what I get The Wire to mean after 2 seasons. But I was, for a cheesy musical, that was a perfect line.
So Mike Post, who did the Hill Street Blues theme, wrote a lot of the music for the rest of the episodes. He also wrote, this is a Seinfeld connection too, the theme song to Greatest American Superhero, Believe It or Not. Believe it or not, George isn't at home.
I
So
just looked that up the other day for some reason.
which was a top 10 hit. Actually, the Hill Street Blues theme was the top 10 hit back then.
Oh, I remember why.
I might even have that single somewhere in around here.
I mean, I'll give Randy Newman credit that some of these songs did not sound like Randy Newman songs, and good for him on that.
Yeah.
Good for
They
him on
can't
that.
do the. It's not the Family Guy joke of him doing all his
Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot.
So as usual, we had 3 bonus episodes. Don't forget to check out New Frontier, Book 1, that's on our main feed, as well as the sketch episodes, which we did over 20 sketches from Saturday Night Live, The Carl Burnett Show, and Living Color, Mad TV, and more. And then, of course, this one, following Cop Rock, which I assume you've listened to since you're at the end of that episode.
So catch those 3 before we come back for Deep Space Nine Season 3, Star Trek Generations, and Voyager Season 1 all together. Until then, live long.
Just say no and prosper.
And put one foot in front of the other.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's got the time?